Everybody makes mistakes, but when a game company does it, it's noticeable, and people talk about it forever. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, 5 Ubisoft mistakes they want you to forget. Coming in at number 5. Did you know that Ubisoft's most profitable gaming platform is PC? Yeah, their most recent sales report says that it is their most profitable platform, PlayStation 4 being their second most profitable platform. Did you know that? Because if you'd have talked to Ubisoft a few years ago, they would tell you that the PC was a worthless platform, which was 93 to 95% piracy. They were not fans of the platform in the very recent past. I know 2012 seems like a long time ago, but it's really not that long. It's 7 years. Ubisoft's CEO said the following in 2012. Normally on PC, it's only 5 to 7% to pay anyway. The rest is pirated. It's around 93 to 95% piracy rate. It was basically used to excuse the fact that they didn't really support the PC at the time. Like, there were games that they were skipping DLCs on, for instance, like Prince of Persia. They were releasing the game on the platform, but they just weren't bothering with additional content for those things, which is actually borderline absurd. When you think about it, it's literally like you develop this content, but you're not going to release it on this platform just because. I mean, sure, their sales probably weren't good, but it was in part due to their piss poor support of the platform and being kind of combative. Like, in a certain read, that quote could be quite combative, basically calling the entire PC gaming community mooches. But now they're the most profitable platform. They released Anno 1800 exclusively on the PC, and wow, did it make lots of money. Their Uplay games, Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, also did incredibly well. I mean, if you look at this report, they are running a very strong ship on the PC currently. So, foot in mouth, right? And every time they have a year like this where it's their best, it's gonna harken back to that time they were like, yeah, they're just thieves. The entirety of PC gamers, they're just thieves. Coming in at number 4. Do you remember back in 2012 when the game Watch Dogs was announced? It looked good, didn't it? It did. It was really a pretty game in the announcement. I mean, people were wowed that E3. That was a good E3 as far as that game. I remember that being an event, just being incredibly excited over the prospect of something that cool happening. You could control the whole city from your smartphone. Also, the game's gorgeous. Well, anybody who played the game knows exactly where I'm going with this. The game certainly has its moments where it is gorgeous. I'm not going to say that it doesn't. But for the most part, it suffered a severe graphics downgrade. And you know what? They did something that was also not super smart as far as announcing a game like that. They did not know exactly what platforms it would be out on. They were nearing the end of the console's release cycle, things were winding down, the next generation was coming, and nobody really knew anything about the next generation yet. And they sort of released a bevy of excuses. Most of them were centered on the fact that the generation was swapping, but we got sometimes more combative ones. But they always kind of centered on the fact that it was console-oriented. And the proof is in the pudding. A modder by the name of The Worse uploaded a settings switch which basically shifted it into overdrive and made it look very much like it looked in the E3 demo. I mean, most of that stuff's still there, so maybe a remaster could be in order at some point. It looks great, in truth. You can find videos of people running it at 4K with this mod, and it just looks significantly better than it ever looked. A lot of people wanted to say it was because the consoles were not good. However, Watch Dogs 2 looks significantly better than Watch Dogs 1, and I would chalk it up to perhaps the fact that they didn't know exactly what they were in for, and they were already developing the game. Watch Dogs had a 5-year development cycle, but there was no real reason to make the PC version look like the console versions, because the console versions did not look good. Coming in at number 3, hey, remember exactly how buggy Assassin's Creed Unity was? Yeah. Oof, was it buggy. It was buggy enough that they really needed to embargo those reviews. I mean, we see review embargoes pretty regularly now, but it was an aggressive one. And there is a strong reason for that. If you remember the Assassin's Creed missing faces thing, where eyeballs and mouths were just floating alone, teeth chattering in the wind. Yeah, that's why. That's the reason those reviews were embargoed so heavily and aggressively. But it wasn't just the face thing. I mean, that was the most memed on part of it. And believe me, it was fun to meme on. That was a fun time. But the collision detection was also pretty bad. Like, you could get stuck in stuff a lot, and you would. Oh, you would. I remember that very specifically. Yanis Mallet, the chief executive at Ubisoft Montreal and Toronto, wrote that it was humbling, the response. And, I mean, that could be taken positively. That's a clever way of wording it, because later on, it sounds like a positive response if you don't have any context. If he did anything other than be humble, there would have been pretty serious problems. There were pretty serious problems, to the point where they were pushing out fixes like as quick as they could. And let's just say they weren't able to do it quick enough because they were not able to get ahead of that public opinion. No siree. It is, after a number of years, better now. Like, if you want to play the game now, you're not going to be totally, like, screwed. But they had to apologize a lot at the time. Like, they had to be very sincere and loud in their apologies for this game, because people expected something way more. And given that expectation is basically a working game, we're not talking about like way more in the terms of like people were expecting too much. They were expecting a working game, and they didn't get one. Coming in at number 2, Assassin's Creed Odyssey actually does this great thing where it leans further into RPGs and your character's level matters more. And I genuinely mean that. It is good. I like that aspect of the game a lot. But wouldn't you know, they found a way to make some money off of that. And this is by no means the worst offender in this, but the grind is emphasized a little bit to get you to spend a little bit of money to bypass it. Now, Odyssey's an awesome game, and I'm not trying to say it's like the worst of this. It's not. So when they made a story creator mode, which allowed you to give experience points to complete your stories, and people were making quests that didn't really have anything to them, and they were essentially farming experience points, they regarded it as theft, and they were like, nope, can't do that. These are both huge dick moves in my book. Oh, and one more thing. They had a sword in the E3 presentation that everybody thought was awesome, and it wasn't in the game until they released a DLC. And it sounds like something that you're like, well, it's just a sword, who cares? They promoted the game on this sword. Like, they sponsored an episode of Man at Arms, which is a forging show where they make real life weapons, and they make a real life version of the sword to promote the game. And it's not in the game. That's an oversight. I mean, to be fair, they did fix it with the DLC, so good on them for that. And finally, coming in at number 1, hey, remember how I said at the very beginning of this video that those absolute goofs thought that the PC platform was 93 to 95% piracy. So they were really fighting a battle with a pretend foe, for one that was just like impossible to beat too. You're never gonna beat that foe. It's totally over if you think that everyone is a pirate, because you're going to do measures like the way that they did always on DRM on stuff, and everyone hated it, and they called it successful when everyone hated it. Everyone hated it for good reason too. There's no reason you should have to be connected to the internet to play an offline game. You want to see a recent example of why people hate that kind of thing? Look at the login in Bethesda's Doom port to the Switch. No, we don't want to log into something that doesn't have an online component. If it's an offline game, then being online shouldn't be a requirement. And yet, there it was, and there they were calling it a success. There's other reasons to hate always on DRM, but I mean, that's, in my opinion, probably one of the bigger ones. They claimed it was a success because less people were pirating their games, but I would guess that overall less people were playing their games, because people hated the idea you had to be online to play an offline game, and I think that's still something to say is horrible, because there are people who still think that's a good idea for some reason. Take it from Ubisoft. No, it's not. And not only is it totally unnecessary, like I said, the PC's their most profitable platform now. The gentler hand works. It's a popular phrase that you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. And in the case of people, it's definitely true. You're not gonna catch a lot of people with vinegar. But that should be the phrase, because you can actually catch a lot of flies with vinegar. It kind of works with both. With people, vinegar doesn't work. So the fact that they switched to a honey strategy, given they're dealing with people, was a good idea. And as a quick bonus for you, Ubisoft apparently demanded a positive review on Assassin's Creed 2 from some German magazine. A magazine called Computer Bild Spiele. I am not German, and I'm 100% sure I said that wrong. Said, our reviews are tough but fair. We will not give up our independent scores for the sake of a timely review. This holds true for Assassin's Creed 2. The publisher asked us to guarantee the score will be sehr gut, very good. Otherwise, we would not receive a review copy. Thus, we will publish our review in next month's issue. We'd be more than glad to give the game a sehr gut, but only if it deserves it, which is a no-no, especially given the fact that the game was actually reviewed pretty well anyways. Whatever. So do you remember any Ubisoft nonsense? Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. And if you like this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on GameRanks.